Hey guys, it's your best boxing friends. I'm Kelsey. This is Rachel. Rachel, WBO announced recently that Oleksandr Usyk, former undisputed cruiserweight champion, undefeated, is going to be the number one, not the number one, the mandatory title challenger for the WBO belt after Andy Ruiz, a champion, and then Joshua have their rematch whenever that happens. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess on paper that might seem reasonable, but I mean, Usyk just came up to heavyweight,
As
and
he hasn't even technically come up to heavyweight, right? He hasn't had one fight at heavyweight.
right. So I'm confused. I'm not confused because it's just I don't think that makes sense to be like, oh, here I am at the heavyweight division. Oh, you want me to fight the winner of
I'm the mandatory title
the
challenger
top
now.
two, because Ruiz made himself like a contender in this whole top three guys in the heavyweight division, right?
Yeah.
Like he made himself like, hey, you gotta at least think about me because I just beat Joshua. Some people might say, you know what? I don't think Ruiz is gonna outlast.
He's the unified champion of the
The
world.
top three. Other people are like, no, he beat Joshua. That's it. It's done. He's the champion. Why would you come up and be your first fight at heavyweight, be a champion? I guess I just don't get
mandatory
that. Even on paper, because I was like, oh, on paper it makes sense, but does it? Let's just take all the names out of the thing. You're the WBO, and you have a champion at the top of your thing that has your belt. A new guy comes into the weight division. You're like, oh, here you are. You're the mandatory. That doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, I think it's a purely political move. I don't understand it. What I do like about it is the WBO is basically saying this guy is the most worthy challenger for our belts. They're only in charge of their belts, so they don't care what the other belts do. Mm-hmm. They say, hey, we think he can beat the champion potentially. And I believe, yeah, Oleksandr Usyk can potentially beat either Andy Ruiz or Anthony Joshua, whoever wins that fight, or really any other heavyweight. He's that good. But what I don't like about it is that your whole business operation, WBO, and all other title belts as well, are built on the idea that people have to work their way up the rankings. They have to earn those mandatory title shots. And what you're doing is letting essentially a guy leapfrog everyone else that's been putting in that work, mm-hmm. right? So there's a whole large segment of the boxing media who wants to ignore alphabet belts. I'm not a proponent of that because I don't think that's journalism. I can't ignore something if it's factually true that it exists, right? So I feel like in that case, while I understand the feelings and thoughts behind it, I feel like you're trying to make news, or in this, the reverse, you're trying to not give the news that you don't like, right? You're basically saying, I'm not going to report this because I don't like it. And that's not journalism. But at the same time, when the WBO or any other sanctioning organization does something like this, I'm like, yeah, it's because it's constant. You make your rules and then you break your rules, right? You have a system, but then you just are seemingly arbitrarily decide to let this kind of thing happen. I'm not against the fight. I'm against the WBO having these rules and then just doing willy-nilly however they see fit. And I don't think it's fair to other heavyweights. I think that there are heavyweights who haven't gotten their title challenges. The heavyweight that comes to mind is Dillian Whyte, who I don't know where he is in the WBO rankings. I know he is high in the WBC rankings. And that gets into a whole other thing. How can these rankings are trash, right? If you look at what's funny is you can have two different independent ratings panels, Ring Magazine, Transnational Boxing Rankings Board, genuinely and generally agree on who the top 10 heavyweights or any division are. Mm-hmm. But then the alphabets, they got all sorts of people I never heard of. Tom Schwartz, I think, was ranked really highly in one of the ranking systems. And that's ridiculous to me. I think it's silly, but it's what we got.
Well, do you think this is somewhat unfair to Usyk that he doesn't get a chance to... I feel like, we just saw Mikey Garcia jump up and weight and take somebody on who were like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should take some other fights at this weight first. I mean, it's completely reasonable to take other fights at the weight that aren't the top guys in the weight class.
I don't think it's unfair to him. I think it potentially isn't in his best interest
Yeah.
to jump. It's actually not fair to other people. It's actually for him to give him the shot. I mean, he probably wants the shot.
So when I
I don't think
first heard
he
about
has to
it,
take it, right?
I thought it was more like it's almost like they were serving like Usyk up, is what it seemed like to me. So sometimes like organizations, they will serve a fighter up to be slaughtered.
Yeah.
Like that happens. That happened with Orlando Salido
Well,
against
I don't think he's going to get slaughtered.
Loma. Blew up in their face, but it does happen.
Right.
And so I'm just saying it has the chance to happen. I don't know like what's going on with Usyk or whatever. Like I'm just looking at like the facts, the odds, the like whatever. Yeah. And usually it's in a fighter's best interest to take some fights at a weight before, if they move up in weight, to take some fights before they take on the champion.
Yeah, there's historical precedents for this, and look at the last undisputed cruiserweight that moved up to became undisputed heavyweight champion, Evander Holyfield. He didn't immediately jump up to fight for heavyweight title. The heavyweight title, he took a few fights at heavyweight to get used to the weight. I think it's in Usyk's best interest.
Like
to do
I would
exactly
like to see Usyk like up against some guys that like I know in the heavyweight division. Just like I think it would do those guys. I'm sure they would be eager for that shot as well. Because Usyk is a name opponent, right? And so I don't know, if I was like any array of guys out there, I'd want to fight Usyk. Yeah. To get my name. Like Chris Arreola always seems like he's on some kind of a comeback, right? Yeah. I don't know after his most recent try to come back. I feel like I haven't heard his name.
He's coming back. He's fighting Adam Kownacki next.
Okay, so maybe it's just
a heavyweight showdown of heavies.
A long break in fights, but like I can see somebody like that who's like, "Hey, I'm making a run here, and Usyk might be,
Here's my analysis of why I think it happened. And this is all stuff I'm making up, but I've been in boxing for at least a decade. The story I make up is that Eddie Hearn, who also promotes Oleksandr Usyk, who promotes Anthony Joshua, wants to have Usyk in that mandatory position just in case Andy Ruiz beats Anthony Joshua again. Because if you're a promoter like Eddie Hearn, you want a heavyweight champion. You want the heavyweight champion, especially if you're certain that Hearn has a relationship with the DAZN. They need that heavyweight championship. And so it's almost a just in case we lose this fight again, because there is a potential that Joshua loses the fight again. It wasn't a lucky punch. It was a systematic breakdown on Joshua. So he'll need to. I'm not saying he can't win the fight. I'm saying he'll really need to improve greatly in the rematch in order to win the fight. I think he can win the fight, but it's good for Eddie Hearn. And so the story makeup is that I think we know that promoters have relationships with alphabet organizations, and all this political stuff goes on behind the scene to make sure that people are in the positions to where certain promoters have certain title holders. Yeah. So I don't know if that's true. I do know that something that is true, and that's that Real Talk with Kelsey and Rachel has taken the boxing world by storm. I don't know what is a bigger story right now. Is it Andy Ruiz's historic upset of Anthony Joshua? Or is it Real Talk with Kelsey and Rachel being the most awesome thing on the planet? I think that's really for you to decide. Don't you think, Rachel, I think you can give us your vote. The only way we know if you voted is if you like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to continue to bring our indispensable opinions, and they are opinions, about boxing to you, our friends.
Best friends.
Our best friends. Hello.
Okay.
Hello, best friend.
Why are we doing that?
Hello. What's that? Remember? It was Monsters Incorporated. The end. Remember that lady? And they opened the door. She's like, hello.
Yeah. Also reminds me of the grandmother on Dinosaurs. Are they the same character?
I'm the baby. I just remember that baby dinosaur. He'd be like, I'm the baby. That was such a big show that just came and went out of nowhere,
Yeah. Have you seen like a clip of that?
No. Is it pretty bad?
It's awful. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't grow up in a family where they let the kids watch whatever. Like that was not a thing in my family. We watched whatever the adults watched. I don't know how they stomached like this. I'm like, were they not in the room? Like I don't know how we got away with watching this, because it's awful.
Well, let us know what you think about the hit
Dinosaurs.
TV show Dinosaurs from like 20 years ago.